Hello and welcome to this video on what are autoregressive models. My name is Geiser, I'm an instructor with QuantFish. In this video I want to walk you through the basics of autoregressive models. So what are autoregressive models, what are they used for, what do they look like, and what are the mathematical equations that also come with these types of models. Let's get started. So imagine you have a construct that you are interested in, let's say for example depression, and you measure depression longitudinally. So in the simplest possible case we have two measurements of depression. So we have a measurement at time 1, here indicated as x1, and then we have another measurement of the same construct depression at a second time point, and you might have more than 2 time points. That would also be possible in an autoregressive model. Now what happens in an autoregressive model is that the measurement at the subsequent time point is regressed on the previous time point. That's why it's called an autoregression, because it's a regression of a variable on itself at a previous time point. In the simplest possible type of autoregressive model, it is always the immediately preceding time point that is used for the regression. But there are also models where when you have more than 2 time points, for example, time point 1 can predict time point 3 under certain circumstances. So this here is nothing but a simple bivariate regression analysis with the specialty that this is the same variable that was measured repeatedly in the same people on 2 time points. So in this model we also have a residual or error variable, because we have to assume that we cannot perfectly predict the time 2 depression scores from the time 1 depression scores. There will be some error involved in the prediction, and so there will be a measurement error in depression scores, and then also there will be potential differences, changes in the rank ordering of people across time in terms of how depressed they are. So there may not be perfect stability or perfect covariance stability of inter-individual differences in depression across time, and so therefore there will be some prediction error here that is reflected in the error term epsilon x. So this model is very simple, and it can be summarized with a bivariate regression equation that is the same as any kind of linear regression equation. So here we have an intercept b0, we have a slope coefficient b1, and then we have the regression on x1, and at the end we have our error term. Now typically autoregressive models like that are not estimated or analyzed so much in isolation because they're pretty boring. So all you can assess here is the stability of inter-individual differences. You can take a look at how strongly those two measurements are related in terms of the B1 coefficient and R squared for your second time point x2. However, typically it's more interesting to regard several constructs. So for example, having a second construct y, that would be anxiety, where we would take a look at the longitudinal relationship between depression and anxiety. And so then we could, for example, find out whether it is more the case that depression predicts subsequent anxiety, or whether it's more the case that anxiety predicts subsequent depression longitudinally. And so that has the advantage then that we have a model where we have temporal precedence. Both variables are measured at both time points, and we can take a look at the longitudinal relationship while controlling for the autoregression of each variable on itself. So then for the second construct, anxiety, the structure looks the same. So we also regress anxiety on itself at the previous time point, and we have an error term also for anxiety. But more than that, we also have so-called cross-lagged effects. So we have regressions over time of depression on anxiety and anxiety on depression. So these are called cross-lagged effects because in the path diagram they form a nice cross or X, and so those are the regressions on the other construct longitudinally. And those allow us to find out whether the prediction is more in terms of depression predicting anxiety, or anxiety predicting depression longitudinally, because these paths can be estimated and they can be compared. In addition to that, we also allow for a covariance at the initial time point. So depression and anxiety must be assumed to be strongly or substantially related at a given time point. So that covariance also goes into the model and is estimated, as it would be implicitly in any kind of regression model, where we also allow predictor variables to be correlated typically with other predictor variables. So when we estimate those autoregressive and cross-legged paths, we take into account any collinearity, any kind of correlation or covariance between the predictors at the initial time point. In addition, we can, but we don't have to, also estimate the covariance between the error terms at the second time point and subsequent time points if we had additional time points. And that serves to account for potential shared time-specific influences at a given time point, so state effects, meaning situation-specific effects that affect both constructs at a given time point. Now, these residual correlations, they need not be included, they're not always needed, they're not always statistically significant. If they're not needed, then we wouldn't include them, because then we could save a parameter there, but this is also something that can be estimated in a model like this. And then, as I said, you could have more than 2 time points, and the structure would look very much the same for a first order autoregressive model, where always the neighboring time points are connected through autoregressive and cross-legged paths. We call this model an autoregressive cross-legged model when it's involving more than one construct, and when we include those cross-legged effects from one construct to another across time. So you'll often find this term autoregressive cross-legged model, or simply the term cross-legged panel models, where it's understood that also the autoregression is part of the model. This model consists of 2 regression or structural equations, one for x, where x2 is regressed on x1 and y1, and one equation for y2, where y2 is regressed on itself, so on y1 and also on x1. And so this is then a set of 2 multiple regression equations with 2 predictor variables each. There's an error term in each equation, because we have to assume that neither the autoregression nor the cross-legged effect accounts for all of the variance in the x2 and y2 variables. There's still measurement error involved, and also there are potential other causes, other variables that explain variability in those variables. So an error term is still included. Now, how is a model like this estimated? Obviously, it's a multivariate regression model, because it has 2 outcome variables, x2 and y2. So you can't estimate that with a standard OLS regression routine as in SPSS, for example, where you could do a regression model. But because standard regression model includes only 1 outcome variable. So we'd have to use a multivariate regression model. And typically models like this are estimated through path analysis. Path analysis is generalized regression, so to say, where you can have as many outcome variables as you like. You can also have so-called mediator variables that are in between. And so that allows for a complex structure, also allows for constraints on parameters and model fit tests, and therefore is the preferred method for estimating autoregressive cross-legged models. So path analysis, if you want to learn more about it, check out my free workshop with QuantFish on path analysis in Mplus. That is linked in the description. Also, this channel has a bunch of videos on path analysis as well. Now, manifest autoregressive models like this one have the disadvantage that they do not account for measurement error. And so measurement error here is then part of the error term epsilon, and so we don't correct for it, which could have the downside that the B paths here, the autoregressive and cross-legged paths, may be biased due to measurement error. Therefore, latent autoregressive models have also been developed. In latent autoregressive models, we look at the same kind of structure, but in terms of latent variables that are corrected for measurement error. So those are latent factors or latent variables in structural equation models. How do we get those? We get those typically by including multiple indicators for each construct at each time point. For example, 3 items or 3 subscales of a depression scale plus 3 subscales of an anxiety scale. And then when we have multiple observed variables, multiple indicators at each time point, we can separate true score variance from measurement error variance, and then the autoregressive and cross-lag paths can be analyzed on the basis of latent variables which are corrected for measurement error, and then in the ideal case that leads to less bias in the estimation of those paths and also is more powerful in terms of statistical inference potentially if those measurement models are correct and if the model fits well and properly accounts for measurement error. How can you fit, or where can you fit models like this? In any software that can handle structural equation models with latent or observed variables. So for example, Mplus, for example, Latent, other programs for structural equation modeling such as AMOS or EQS or LISREL. So anything that is capable of handling latent factors and confirmatory factor analysis, structural equation modeling will allow you to estimate observed and latent autoregressive models. I hope you found this video useful to learn more about autoregressive models for longitudinal data. If you're more interested in longitudinal data analysis, check out my workshops, and workshops also taught by other people that are available through QuantFish that are linked in the description, and I'll see you next time.